Awesome, you guys. Welcome back to EXP Family Tree, our Wednesday productivity mastermind. We have a treat for you. You guys are going to learn some things that you need to know to get these deals under contract and get some closings and continue to move forward. We know that it's almost summer. We know that you guys are getting busier. We're super glad that you are. And I think many of you are sending your AIs to visit with us, which, that's fine too, but they don't talk to us. So we miss you guys joining live. Make sure you pop on if you can. We know many of you are watching live. I'm actually watching a number of you watch live in the live stream, which is great as well. So hi to you guys. We are recording this. We'll be out on my YouTube channel within 24 hours. If you want to share it with somebody else or you just want to rewatch it when you're doing something else, please do, because this is going to be some good information that you're likely going to want to watch again. And we've had Dan Rochon here multiple times. He is coming live most monthly, at least, with us here in EXP Family Tree, which we are super grateful for. And he has a lot to share. Remember, he also has a Facebook group. I'm sure he's going to give you that information at the end of the call as well, so that you can stay connected and maybe learn more outside of these calls. But Dan is the head coach and visionary of CPI Community and the CEO of Greetings Virginia Sales Network, and he'll tell you a little bit more about his experience. But he's also the author of Real Estate Evolution, the top 10 or the 10-step guide to CPI for real estate agents, and the host of the No Broke Months podcast. You should check that out. I'm sure you'd rather not have any broke months as well. And Dan hasn't had a broke month for how long now?
Since 2008.
Since 2008. I mean, who wants to not have a broke month that long? You guys can do it too, but you just have to have consistency. You need to know what to say. You need to have some of these steps. And so if you like what Dan is talking about today, you can find him on Workplace here. You can work chat him. And of course, you can go check out the podcast or get into the Facebook group as well. So without further ado, Dan, tell us what you're going to talk to us about again today.
Thank you, Cari. And it's a pleasure. I'm very, very excited to be here. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to go through 3 frameworks today. So the frameworks from the perspective of after you get a lead, okay, now what?
Okay.
So what I recognize, can I just jump right in, Cari? Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Before I do so, we have a very special guest here. It's not Terry, but behind Terry, I see a very, very special guest there. Can you introduce us there?
What is it?
That is Maurice.
Maurice.
I love it.
Great name. That's his couch. He sits there while I work.
I know. I see Maurice kicked you out there, man.
That's awesome.
All right, Maurice and Terry and all the artificial intelligence. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Dan Rochon, and I'm grateful to be here today. I'm going to share with you, hey, I got a lead. Now what? And I'm going to go through 3 frameworks to be able to help you with that. So you probably, and hello Workplace as well, and Family Tree, hello, hello, hello. You guys are freaking awesome. So what do? So we've got to, you've gone to classes before. You've probably have heard instructors drill and drill and drill, lead generation, lead generation, lead generation, lead generation. So certainly you've already had that experience. And that's correct. That's correct, because lead generation is the first domino where when you focus on that on a daily basis, then everything else falls after that. So if if you're concerned about, like, how do I have no broke months? How do I have consistent, predictable income? I'm not special. Being an agent who's had no broke months since 2008, I'm not special. I just simply have lead generated 5 days a week for 16 years. Now, how much do I lead generate? Well, at the beginning, if you got no business, you got no business doing anything but lead generating. Today, it's about 1 hour a day. And I spend about 1 hour a day converting leads. And I've got a whole team of people that are helping me to lead generate. So I'm privileged and grateful for them. Yet, it really depends on who you are, what your goals are, where you are in your business, of how much time that you would invest. But I would say no less than 1 hour. 1 to 3 hours typically is a good amount of time. But what's most important is I'd much rather hear you say, I'm going to commit 1 hour, 5 days a week, than 5 hours, 1 day a week. And I know it's the same amount of time, but I promise you, you will have far greater results when you do it consistently. Does it make sense? Hello, Lisa. Welcome. How are you? Nice to see you.
Good, thanks.
So now we found that lead. So now what do we do once we found that lead? Because what many agents struggle with is, now I found that lead, but now like I don't get hired that often. And so if you're not getting hired often, then I'm going to recommend that you write this down, because if you're not achieving your goals, meaning I have a goal to help 36 families buy or sell a home in 2023, or I have a goal of 12 families, or whatever it is, 100, 200, 500. It doesn't matter to me what your goals are. What matters to me is that you're situated and you're set up to achieve those goals. Okay. And so whatever your goals are, it's not about the goal, it's about the habit, the activity. And so it's about embracing that activity on a regular basis. Hello, Chrissy. I'm waiting for Joanne's audio to get there. Hello, Joanne. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, and you got your video on. You're freaking awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
All right. So if you're not achieving your goals, then we're going to take a few steps back and we're going to say, well, what is it that's the habit that's missing, or the skill that's missing, or the opportunity? And it's going to be one of three things. So if you're on Workplace, if you're on Family Tree, watching, feel free to join on the Zoom, because I'm happy to answer your questions. But write these three things down. The three things: AIs, pay attention, AIs, make sure you don't screw this up. Talking to all the Otterbots there. Number one, it's either you're not saying the right thing. Number two, you're not saying it to the right people. Or number three, you're not saying it often enough. I guarantee you, I promise you, that if you're not achieving your goals in real estate sales, it's going to rest on 1, 2, or 3 of those symptoms, of those activities or lack of activities. And so what I mean by that is, are you saying it often enough? 5 days a week, 1 hour as a bare minimum. You guys okay with that? By the way, I'm going to get back to this here in a second. 2 years ago, I'm sitting poolside with my friend Nilesh. Nilesh is a heart surgeon. He got his degree and all of his qualifications in Bangladesh. Went to years and years and years of school. He comes to the United States. He has to go to another 4 years of college because now he's in the US, even though he's been practicing as a surgeon for years, but they didn't qualify him as a surgeon, though they probably should have, right? But so he has to go through another 4 years of school. He and I are sitting poolside 2 years ago. Somehow or another, he shares with me how much money he makes. I recognize in that instant, holy crap, holy goodness, I make 3 times as much money as he does. Now, I'm grateful for, and I deserve the income that I earn. Okay, so I'm not downplaying that at all. But I came to this awareness to say, well, wait a second. I have the opportunity to be able to make 3 times as much as a heart surgeon, and maybe even more than that. What do I have to actually do to make that happen? Now, I already knew it because I was already doing it, right? But I want you to think about this. So what is your job description to be able to create that to happen? 5 hours a week of lead generating. Now, if you're just starting, will that be enough? Probably not. It's sort of like a flywheel. You can imagine like a flywheel sitting at the bottom of a chain. And that's that first push that you push. It's like it takes all your effort, and you get it nowhere. And then you lean back, and then you push again, and you get just a little ounce. And then you lean back and you push again, and you lean back and you push again. And at some point, that ball starts rolling back and forth. Okay. So if you're newer if you're newer agent right now, guess what? You got to lean in because you got no momentum. But as you develop in your sales career, that ball will start rolling. And at some point, you can step back and you can start just sort of pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, where it doesn't take as much energy or as much effort or as much time. I'm grateful that that's where I am in my sales career today, but I haven't always been there. Okay. I was a new agent once upon a time. So understanding that you can, between 5 and 15 hours of work a week, make as much or 3 times as much as a heart surgeon in the profession that you're in today. That's an opportunity for you. So let's go back. If you're not achieving your goals, you're either not doing it often enough, 5 to 15 hours a week, or you're not saying it to the right people. So who are the right people? The right people are going to be what's categorized into 2 buckets: long-term, short-term. Long-term is going to be the activities that's going to take you 18 months or so. So for example, I've been doing networking as a BNI, a networking group, for 16 years. I just did a presentation earlier this morning for my BNI group. I close about $100,000 of GCI, gross commission income, as a result each year from that group. And again, I'm grateful for that. And that's one of my 10 or 12 pillars of business that I have. And today, it doesn't take me a lot of effort, but when I started it, guess how long it took before I started getting business consistently? 18 months. So any of your long-term efforts, you can anticipate it's going to be 18 months. But guess what happens if you start mailing postcards to your neighbors and you stop 5 months later? Guess what you get? 5 months of money flushed down the drain. That's what you get. So if you start something, you've got to continue it. So again, we're in that second bucket of who you're saying it to: long-term, short-term. Most of us don't have 18 months of reserves to wait for that to get up and running. So that means that we've got to simultaneously long-term and short-term. Why do we even care about the long-term? Because the long-term makes your business sustainable. The long-term puts a moat around your business to protect you against what exists today in the marketplace: commoditization, technology, artificial intelligence, big data. The world has already changed. Notice the tense of the verb I just said there. I did not say the world is changing. I said too late. You better catch up now. And so when you have that long term, that's where you put that moat around your business to protect you for those other things that are circumstance that are outside your control. But we got to eat today, Dan. Yes, we do. So who do we talk to? Remember, you're saying it often enough. You're saying it to the right people. So now, who can we talk to be able to get business today? That's when you're going to do activity like prospecting, activity like an open house, visiting for sale by owners. I know, right? But hang tight with me. At the end of this presentation, I'll share an event that you can attend, and I'll show you how you can do FSBOs in a way that I promise you will feel good. So to be able to maybe online leads, Facebook leads. I don't want to say it. I won't say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. The company that starts with a Z. Okay. Don't use them. Just saying. I mean, I'm not saying what to do or what not to do, but I'm not going to say their name. But whatever you do, I respect you very much. All right. We have to be able to do short-term business. Okay. So now, how often are we saying it? 5 to 15 hours a week. Who are we saying it to? 1 long-term, up to 3 short-term. And now, what are we saying? Because again, if you're not achieving your results, it's going to be 1 or 3 of those. And understand that your goals are the outcome. You do have 0 power if you close 100 transactions this year. You have 0 power if you close 10 transactions this year or 2. What you have power in is what you do with your time. The results are going to be the results. Through time, when you spend your time doing certain activity, you can have predictable results. So now let's focus. We're going to focus the rest of the conversation and most of the conversation today on what do you say. So now that we understand what you say, now we're going to get into the framework. So that's all a prelude of what we've done so far for the topic today, which is I got a lead, now what? And so now what we want to do is we want to put these into 3 frameworks. So the 3 frameworks we're going to talk about today are connect, qualify, and pre-sway. And so I'm going to treat so it's connect, qualify, and pre-sway. So I'm going to treat your business now as though if it's a series of frameworks. And understanding what is a framework. So a framework, let's use an example of, I like to use a stair step. So if you could use a stair step and you understand where am I today, where am I, and where do I want to go? What result do I want to get? So below this stair step here, there's a series of other stair steps, which is the lead generation piece. Okay, so that's not, we're not going to go deep on that, though I brushed on that a little bit already. But what we're going to do is we're going to start, you got the lead here. So now where you're at is you've got the lead. And so now that's where you're starting. And step number 1 is to connect. So what result do you want with the lead? The result that you want with the lead is you want connection. So this is step 1 or framework 1 of what you want to do. Now understand what many agents do is they don't break this into frameworks. What many agents do is you got a lead. What do you want? I want to go to closing. Well, so do I. But if you meet the prettiest guy in the world, I was going to say prettiest woman, and then I changed it because there's 3 out of 5 of us that are alive here. And then I went to man, and I just screwed that entire thing up. But the most attractive person in the world, you meet them on the first date, and you say, hey, I want to get married. You think you may have missed a step? You think there may be a little bit more to go? This time is just like that time. So you have to understand that if you're looking to get to closing on step 1, you're missing a whole lot of steps. So these are the steps that you have the opportunity to focus on. So I want to encourage you to always look at what's the next step, what's the next result for me to get. Result number 1 is I want a connection. I got a lead, I want a connection. So when I say connection, I mean that in 2 ways. I mean that as a physical connection, and I mean that as an emotional, energetic connection. And when I say physical connection, I'm not talking like physical touch. I'm talking physical like on the phone or physical on a video. Okay, so this is a physical connection that we have right now. But I also mean this on an energetic connection. So we got the lead. So step number 1 is we get connected with that lead. So we're going to say physical connection. How quickly do we physically connect with them? How fast? How quickly do we physically connect?
You want to reach out to him?
Terry first, then Jen.
Faster. Faster.
Right away.
Faster. Sorry, Terry. Faster. Whatever answer you say, faster. Okay. Now we call that speed to lead. But what I'm going to do a little time out on my stair steps here for a second, okay? Because I want to talk to you about speed to lead. I want to talk to you about speed to process. So it's not just about speed to lead, but it's speed to process. I've got an agent who works in my sales team, gives me a call yesterday morning, John. And John says, hey, Dan, I've got a buyer wants to write an offer. He's going to accept it on this bank-owned property, this REO. He said, what forms do I use? I said, hey, I was on the road. I said, hey, man, I got to get back to you. I'm pretty unavailable for the next 4 hours. I'll give you a call then. I give him a call back 4 hours. Well, guess what happened during those 4 hours? Went under contract. So that was an opportunity. I said, hey, my bad. I didn't have the resource to be able to support you to get this together. That's on me. I say, and this is when I say speed to process, this is what I'm talking about right here. It's not just the speed to lead that's faster, 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 as I'm blurting that out at Terry so rudely. Okay. It's faster, faster, faster for every single step of the process. Because guess what? 4 hours goes by and now the property's under contract. We have pretty much a zero chance of getting it. 4 hours previous, we don't know what chance we had. Better than zero. You get a lead from from wherever you get them, and you introduce them to a lender, and that lender calls them in 3 days from now. What's the opportunity, or even tonight, or even 2 days from now? What's the opportunity that they may go and find another agent on Zillow or an open house or someplace else? Okay, so speed to process the entire time. So now we physically connect with them. So then, because again, we're talking about the first framework of connection, I want to talk about the energetic connection. So I break this down into 3 steps for the energetic connection. I call this the CPI communication model. So the CPI communication model is 3 steps. So number 1 is to gain rapport. Number 2 is to ask adept questions. And number 3 is to actively listen. So if you look at these three steps here, and I'm going to outline it for you. And then I'm going to put this into a, like this has its own framework here. So this is a framework inside of a framework. Okay. And this is a framework to communicate so that you instantly connect with another human being. So step number 1 is rapport. Rapport is a connection. It's a connection of energy. What I most often hear when I say, hey, what's rapport? I hear things like trust. I hear things like likeness, liking people. I hear things like, pretty much anything but connection. But what most of those answers are, the trust, the likability, the feeling good about the interaction, that's all a result of rapport. It's not what rapport is. So when you gain rapport, it is a connection of energy. We are spiritual beings manifested in a human condition. So each one of us is a spiritual being. We have a mind, we have a nervous system, we have a physical system, we have a cardiovascular system, and within all that housing is a spirit, which is the true you. And when you are able to connect with another spiritual human being, you're displaying a high level of rapport. You're displaying rapport. How do you know when you're in rapport with somebody? You know you're in rapport with somebody is when you can physically feel it. So now that we understand what rapport is, and the best way, by the way, to be in rapport is just simply to pay attention. Be aware. Pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to who you're with. Now we want to ask adept questions. What's an adept question? An adept question is the question that's designed to get somebody to move somewhere, to take some sort of action. Now, I've never had a buyer ever one single time hire me who didn't want to buy a home, at least when they hired me. Because if that's true, they never would have hired me. You probably have had a buyer hire you, and I have as well, that did not end up going to closing. Would that be a true statement? If that's a true statement, what causes that to happen in most circumstances, in most situations, rather? They get scared. Fear, emotion gets in their way. Sometimes it's the circumstance, but mostly it's emotion. Sometimes they lose a job. but mostly they just get scared. And so when you understand that, then you'll be positioned so that you can ask better questions to be able to guide them so that you can help them address that fear before it becomes a thing. And so what I'm going to suggest for you to do is I'm going to suggest that you ask deep questions, that you dive deep. And what do I mean by diving deep? So when you're asking questions, you can do surface level questions and you could do deep diving questions. A surface level question would be, you want to buy a home? Sure. How many bedrooms? 3 bedrooms. How many baths? 2. You talk to a lender? Not yet. All right. Don't ask your questions like that. You want it more conversational, right? I'm doing that for instructions purposes, right? That's surface level. Deep level, diving deep would be, tell me more about that. Write this down, by the way. These are great questions to be able to really get to a motivation. What does that mean to you? When you achieve that, what will it do for you? So tell me more about that. What does that mean to you? When you achieve that, what will that do for you? If you could think of a single gentleman comes to you and says, hey, Terry, I want you to help me out to buy a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo. Lisa, Joanne, this is what I want your help with. Chrissy, Cari, Dan, whatever the case may be. And you say, great, we can all do that, right? We can all help that guy. But if you find out that that guy is recently divorced, you find out that he's got a 12-year-old daughter that goes to school in a certain school district, and you find out that it's important to him to live within that same school district, and it's got to be a 1-bedroom because he can't afford anything else in that school district because it's expensive. And then you find out that ultimately what it means to him is that he wants to be able to be a good dad to his daughter. He wants to be able to have her spend half the time with him. He wants to be able to make sure that he could do that because of the schools. And he wants to be able to ultimately be a worthy father because his dad abandoned him when he was young. Do you think that you can help him more so? Surface level, dive deep. The difference between the two, again, is in the way that you want to approach this. By the way, as you dive deep, you will identify what their fear is. Because remember, I said what causes people to not buy, it's fear. You'll also identify what it is that they want to achieve. Sales 101, identify a fear, identify a pleasure, agitate the fear, move them towards the pleasure. Sales 101. You can identify the pleasure, you can identify the pain by asking deep questions. And now, before the pain shows up, before the fear shows up, handle it proactively. Now we're going to actively listen. So what are we actively listening to? What are we actively listening for? I already gave you a clue to that. It rests over here in the rapport. If you remember what is rapport, it's a connection of energy. So when we actively listen, we're actively listening to that energy. If you've ever had a buyer, husband, wife, spouse, partner, whoever, friends, it doesn't matter. 2 people buying a home, and you looked at one of them and you said, you want to write an offer that gets accepted? And one says, yes, I do. And the other says, yeah. Did they both just say yes? One sure did. If you don't address that yes, that was a no, do you think that there may be a potential for a problem in the transaction coming up? Yeah, just a little bit. So you want to be able to actively listen, because when you're actively listening, then you're going to be able to identify potential roadblocks. You're going to be able to identify potential things that can blow up the transaction. So now we've connected. And then after we've connected, we're going to go to a next stair step. So the next stair step is now we're going to qualify. So the result that we want now is to qualify. And where are they now? We are connected with them. We're connected with them physically. We're on the phone with them, or we're on a video with them. And now we have to qualify. By the way, when you're connecting with them on a phone, let's say it's a buyer, I recommend that your next connection be a video conversation. The hierarchy of communication suggests that when you're eyeball to eyeball with somebody, you're going to be able to interact with them more effectively. When you're texting somebody, it's going to be less effectively. Okay? So we want to, through this process of connecting with them, we want to set up a video consultation as the next step. And then as we're getting into the next step, if it's a buyer, what are we identifying? What are we qualifying them for? We're qualifying them for motivation, and Lisa says money, 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 honey. All right? Motivation and means. It's really, really, really easy to find unqualified buyers. Like really easy. In fact, does anybody want 50 referrals today of unqualified buyers from me? I'll give them to you. All right? No. It's really easy to find unqualified buyers. It's not so easy to find buyers who are motivated and want to buy, but can also buy. So when you understand that, you're going to slow your roll a little bit, right? You're not going to propose marriage again on that first date. You're going to find, hey, is she even available? Okay, right? Like we're going to basics 101 here. And so we want to make sure, can they even do this? If they can do this, or if they want to do this, can they? So what sort of questions would you ask them? How's your credit? Have you bought before? Do you have a down payment saved? How long have you been at your job? You've got to be willing to ask those questions, in my opinion. Now, you're not the lender, so you don't need to go into it too deep, but you need to just scratch the surface. Okay, because if you find out they got a 520 credit, no job, just filed a bankruptcy last month, do you have a co-signer? Because that ain't flying. And if you find out that that's the buyer that you have, and you go meet them at a home tomorrow, you're disrespecting your family. Or yourself at the least. I don't know if you have a family or not, but you're disrespecting at least yourself. Because remember, we go back to step number one, which is lead generate. We want to find qualified people though. Now, if it's a seller, there's two questions that I asked during the seller qualification. And one of these is going to sort of step into step 3 here when we get to pre-suade, which is sort of setting up the foundation for getting hired. So when you're qualifying for a seller, step number 1 is, or question number 1 is, as your agent, Joanne, what do you expect from me? Who recognized what I just did there, by the way? Go ahead. You got it. You got it.
I just couldn't get you off mute. You positioned yourself as my expert. You just made yourself my agent.
Yep. Yep. And then I'm going
By
to
me answering your question, I'm admitting, I'm acknowledging that you are my agent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rarely will they call you on it. Rarely. If they do, then here's what you say. Well, I understand that I'm not your agent at this point. My job is to make certain that you feel comfortable and confident that I'm the best agent, the right agent for you. I'm curious. How would you know if I was the right agent for you? And you put it back to them. So anytime that it's always a 1-2 punch, is always a sentence question. You keep control. Okay. And so if you do get that objection, it doesn't happen often, maybe less than 10% of the time. So the second question that you're going to ask for the seller is going to be, well, just curious, what do you think the value, how much do you want to sell the property for? Now, when I first started sales, I'd get an answer that 50% of the time. Today, you're going to get an answer from that 100% of the time. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you about it now. I'm doing a 5-day class on May 22nd to the 26th. It's an hour a day. I'm going to teach you how to take listings. You go to www.5daylistingchallenge.com if you're interested to join me. It's free. It's online. And I'll go through all these steps. But when you're talking to them, or the reason why I said that is because I'll go through these steps, in more depth when we do that. When you're qualifying them and you say, what's your expectation of me as a real estate agent? And then you're saying, how much do you want to sell this for? When you show up to the appointment, and this is what I'll show you during the 5 days, when you show up to the appointment, one of the things you're going to have in your hand is the Zillow printout. Why are you going to have the Zillow printout? Because they've already been on Zillow. Now, I don't actually use printouts. I do everything on the computer. The only thing I do print out is the actual contract. But I'll show you guys how to do that when you join the challenge. So you're going to want to make sure that you know what they know. Because if that Zillow says it's worth $550 and you think it's worth $500, you got to be able to be persuasive that they understand reality. And again, I'm not going to go into that deep today because I just don't have time. But I will go into that deep when we during the listing challenge. So you want to go ahead and you want to qualify them. And then once you qualify them, and now you've got a valid motivated buyer or motivated seller, somebody who wants to buy and can buy. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to persuade them. Persuade's not my term. Anytime that I teach something that somebody else's, Dr. Cialdini, who is a psychologist, teaches persuasion, teaches how to be able to get influence, how to be able to get people to do things. He's in the world today, right? And he's teaching this today. He's got a book called Persuasion. And in Persuasion, Dr. Cialdini talks to us about, let's not try to persuade somebody to do something. Let's set it up to communicate them to do something before we ask them to do so. Does it make sense to you guys? So now we've connected with them. We've connected with them physically. We've connected with them energetically. And now we went from the connection to the qualification by asking them a series of questions. And now we're going to go up to the next level. And in the next level, we are at this point where we're qualified. And now we want to persuade them. So I'll just do it like this. We want to persuade them so that when we ask to get hired, we get hired. But then we're also looking at, well, now we got hired. Now there's a stair step up here and a stair step up here and a stair step up here. So how can I set this up so that I'm avoiding things that can happen up here? Let me give you a couple of examples. Has anybody here ever had a seller give you a call? They left my lights on, Dan. They left the garage open. These are predictable problems of a transaction. Once upon a time, I used to own a rather large real estate brokerage. I was the operating partner of a Keller Williams Realty franchise for 10 years. And I would have the agents, and I learned this by helping the agents in the brokerage. They'd come up to me often. They say, Dan, here's a problem. Dan, here's a problem. Dan, here's a problem. Guess what? They were all the same problem. Different skin, different masking, same problem. And I started thinking, if we're going to get the same problem over and over and over and over again, can't we just sort of handle it before it happens rather than after? Can't we be proactive? And that's where Real Estate Evolution, I think Cari mentioned that earlier, the book that I authored, that's where I document in that book, what are all the problems that you can avoid? Okay, now it took me 13 months to write that book, so I certainly can't go over it in 18 minutes, right? But I'm sure Les or somebody will put a link in there where you can get it. We want to set their expectations up front, like Terry says. And so what would your world look like if before you even put it in the MLS, you had a conversation with them and you said to them something like, Mr. Seller, from time to time, somebody may show up unannounced to your property. It can be, annoying, but it can happen. If it happens, let them in if you want. If you don't, send them away and ask them to call the showing service that I'm hiring on your behalf and schedule this appropriately. And, oh, by the way, from time to time, they may come through the property and leave something unlocked or open. And what I can promise you is that every single person that comes through your property is going to be with a real estate agent. Every single person, I'm going to give them a call to get their feedback. I will communicate with them before they show your property of the expectations of the respect that you and I are going to ask of them. Unfortunately, I can't control 100% of of those other agents. What I can do is I can control the way that we're going to present you. I can control the way we're going to communicate with them, and I can get their feedback. If something does happen, please let me know. Okay. Now, I may not be able to really do much about it other than maybe just, have a conversation with somebody, which I will. But I just want to set your expectations that from time to time, this may happen. Now, you have that conversation down here before it happens, because it happens up here. And then now it happens. Are they going to be as annoyed with you? Or maybe they may even appreciate the professionalism that you approached it with. It's the difference between being a professional agent and an idiot from their perspective. I'm not saying that word to anybody here, right? Okay. But from the seller's perspective. Buyers.
Yeah, we're in front of it instead of behind it.
Right, absolutely. And now because you're in front of it, when it happens, same freaking thing happened, but you're in front of it.
And we look like, we
Like
had
rock stars.
ESP, right?
Yeah, you look like, man, Lisa knows her stuff. Lisa knows what she's doing. Joanne, Terry, they know what they're doing. Right? That's the way we want to set this up. Home inspections. Let's give you an example from the buyer. Let's say you're my agent. I'm the buyer. Just wrote an offer, got accepted today. Congratulations, Dan. Tonight I go to sleep. Tomorrow morning I wake up. What do you think I'm feeling tomorrow morning?
Buyer's remorse and oh my God, what did I just do?
At the least, I'm anxious. Would you guys agree to that? At the least, I've got some anxiety. More likely, oh my gosh, what did I do? I call my brother up. Yo, Mike, I just got a house. I'm so excited. In this market, Dan? What are you, freaking stupid? What are you, insane? That's my brother. That's what he would say, right? Whatever. So tomorrow morning, there's going to be doubt. We can all agree to that, right? So now what happens today what's today? Wednesday. What happens on Friday or Monday? Home inspection. 100% of the time, the home inspector is going to find 100 things wrong with the property. I've never had a home inspection that the home inspector didn't find that out. And agents, almost 100% of the time, are then dealing with it reactively. When we already know that the buyer, me in this case, I'm anxious. I've got people chirping into my ears. Interest rates are high. I'm second guessing myself. I may have buyer's remorse. I may be saying, oh my goodness, what did I do? This is $500,000. That's more than a lifetime of savings. Like, oh my God, like what? Seriously. Right, those are all the thoughts and feelings that I'm expressing. And then here comes the home inspector. Boom. There's that big packet down. Now it's on the computer now. But I'm doing that for emphasis. You guys get the point. And now there's all these little red boxes and all these little yellow boxes and all these things on there that needs to be repaired. And I'm already on edge. I want the fire inspector replaced. I want that little widget over there replaced. that cracked faceplate over there that's going to cost me $10 from Home Depot, that won't work. The sellers need to fix that because I'm not getting taken advantage of. Again, all predictable. So what if we had the conversation down here? Well, before we're up here, Mr. Buyer, Miss Buyer, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to help you. And when I help you, what I can share with you is that because you've taken the time to share with me exactly what you're looking for, I can promise you if the home exists, we're going to hit that bullseye. Now, if the bullseye does not exist, we're going to have to change one of three things, either the price, location, or type of home. And you may be surprised by this, but typically when I'm working with great buyers like you, it only takes them around 2 times to go out and actually look at homes. Because really, honestly, because you've done such a great job sharing with me what I need to know, and I know the market, I know every nook and cranny, and I already have some ideas right now of what may work for you. I promise you I'll find it if it exists. And typically we'll even see it like the first time that we go out. But it's a big thing, I get it. So typically many buyers want to go out a second time just to make sure you're emotionally like, I'm good with this. Now, Mr. Buyer, I'm here for you from now to the end of time, but I just want to let you know what most other buyers do when I'm helping them. And I want to let you know that we're going to protect you throughout this process. We're going to protect you throughout this process, meaning that we're going to do a home inspection. And when we do the home inspection, it's going to be done a few days, and I would go through the anxiety, and I would actually share that with them up front about what they're going to be experiencing. And so, Mr. Buyer, when we do the home inspection, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take a look at the big rocks. That's going to be the plumbing, the HVAC, the hot water heater, the appliances, the roof, the electrical. These are the things, the things that may cost you money, Mr. Buyer. What we're not going to worry about is we're not going to worry about that, the smoke detector, which is obviously vital and important, but it's $50 to replace. And the faceplate, well, that's important that, the home looks good. Okay. But the faceplate, guess what? When you wrote the offer, it was cracked, and it's still cracked today. It will still be cracked tomorrow. I'll bring you to Home Depot. I'll get you a faceplate for a housewarming present because I'm that guy. I'm just joking. Take that part out. Woo. So these are the things that you're going to be communicating with them throughout the process to set up their expectations so that up here, you're avoiding problems. Now, I just avoided 3 problems in that dialogue. What 3 problems did I just avoid?
Well, one of them is nickel and diming the seller because now the buyer is set up to know, hey, these are typical.
Yeah. So the home inspection. So I just avoided, again, nothing's perfect, but at least I set this up to avoid it, right? I did 2 other things in that conversation. I did it before I got to the home inspection conversation. And Terry, you actually put a chart in there with the, I haven't seen that before, but you just put that chart in there that talks to that a little bit.
I actually created that myself. So when I'm setting up my expectations for buyers,
Love it, man.
there's 3 pillars, whether you're buying a $5 piece of land or a multi-million-dollar home. Location, condition, or budget. You can only work one side. Which one's most important to you?
I love it. Now, because Terry does that, because you're going to do that moving forward, what you just did there is you avoided going out and working with an unrealistic buyer that's looking for something that doesn't exist. Because what you do when you do that up front is you're setting yourself up that when you go out there up and you're in the field and you're showing homes, now you're giving control, perceived control, back to the buyer. And the home doesn't exist. And you say, Joanne, remember when we had that conversation on video last week? And we said that if it exists, the bullseye exists, I'll find it for you. Well, clearly, unfortunately, it doesn't exist. So I'm just curious. Should we go back to the lender and see if we can maybe move the budget a little bit? Or should we be in this location instead of this? Or should maybe we do a 3-bedroom instead of a 4-bedroom? What do you think we should do?
I'm listening because I currently am having multiple conversations like this with buyers who are in turn my listings, and some of them are just not getting it.
I get it. And with respect, Joanne, you're probably being reactive rather than proactive, right? With
Absolutely. So I'm all ears. I'll
Yeah.
say one thing. The wife has not purchased before and she wants to just look. The husband is the budgeter and doesn't want the budget to explode. But in her mind, she just wants a pretty house and it costs 600,000. But if they were to purchase a home, even the same price in what they live in, their budget would explode. And I did the numbers, I did everything. I sent an email. I had my lender do the numbers and show them simple math. Even if you finance the same amount that you financed today, just financing it today versus yesterday, last year, whenever, your interest rate is going from 2-point-something% to 7-point-something%. Or, we did the math for them. And she's still just like, I just want to look. That makes sense, right? I'm like, okay, so this is where the conversation is paused because you're putting the cart before the horse.
So we're going to take the experience that you're having right now. And by the way, everything I'm teaching you right now, the experience that you're having is not unique. The experience that you're having is common. We can commit, Joanne, that this be the last time that you ever have that experience again.
Yes.
So what I want you to do is take what I'm sharing with you, but I can't give you everything in this short period of time, but also identify every single thing that you're experiencing right now, and then consider, what could I say up front next time so that, right? Because check this out. If you're having a conversation up here and you're showing them the market stats, and you're actually showing the market stats, and you can show them when they're in a neutral state, the original list price, even in today's market, is 99.7% of sold price to the original list price. So what that means to you is that if it's listed for $550,000, and assuming that it's listed at a competitive price, which we can determine by the other homes that are sold, then that means that we're going to have to come in at pretty much 550. When you say that to them up front, when they're in an excited state, not a scared state, they'll be like, yeah, I got it. And now you never have to be reactive to come backwards. Let's go back real quick because I gave you 3 things there. The home inspection, and then the what Terry calls the triangle of real estate. I love that you did that, which will set you up so that you give them control back. So the question that I said was, now which of those do you want to change? You want to change the price, location, or the type of home? Who's in the perceived control at that point? They think they are. They're making the choice. So you set it up so that now you can give them the choice, and whatever they say is something that is going to allow for them to move forward. The third thing that I did in the dialogue, you may not remember because it was a few minutes ago now. The third thing that I did, and I'm recalling what I did do, was 2 showings or less. Okay, so I also had that conversation. That avoids going out for 6 months showing somebody properties. Okay, so again, you're having that conversation up front. So everything is done to persuade, not just to get them to hire us, but also to persuade to be able to prevent predictable problems. By the way, if you sat there, and I don't have time to really dive into this deep right now, but if you sat there, there's 13 steps that I take before I meet with a seller. When I go on a listing appointment, I'm there for 2 things. Those 2 things are going to be in a stair step way up here, are simply consult and get hired. That's it. I'm not there to sing and dance. I'm not there to convince them to hire me. You get them to understand the value that you provide them before you go on the appointment. Okay, that's things like I send them 3 emails with the videos of testimonials and display of what I've done in the past and demonstrate to them why they should choose me. I'm sending them a text. I'm sending them a webinar. I'm sending them a pre-listing packet. This is my the book that I authored, another book that I offered. I'm sharing them. This is a pre-listing guide with my name and face on it right there that I'm sharing with them before we meet. And I'm sharing with them all those touches, those 13 touches. I'm putting a handwritten note in the mailbox so that when I show up, they already know that I can help them. They already know how I'm going to help them. They already know that I'm well qualified. You can do the same. So that when I show up, I'm just there for 2 things. Number 1, I'm going to consult them to set their expectation using many of the same conversations in the persuasion that I'm going through. and I'm going to get hired. And that's it. And that's my intention when I go on to a listing consultation. All right. We got 3 minutes left. What are your ahas? What are your questions? What are your thoughts? Thank you for your participation today. You guys are freaking awesome. What you guys got for me? What's one thing that you learned today?
A great reminder that the basics are still true and the diving the deep is always best.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry.
Good reminder to stay in front and not behind. That'll make you look good.
Yeah. And, you know, and this is true for veterans as well as newer, because what veterans do is we get lazy sometimes. And I've gotten caught behind it a couple times just because I got lazy. I'm like, I can't believe I just did that. All right. So, so don't get lazy. If you're a veteran, don't get lazy. All right, guys, I hope to see you at the listing challenge. Cari, thank you so much for having me today.
Awesome. And so you guys in the chat, sign up for Dan's event next week to get more of this sort of teaching if you want it. Dan is awesome, as you guys know. So you just go right there to that link. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to put it underneath the live stream as well. If you guys want to rewatch this, go watch the live stream or check it out on my YouTube channel within 24 hours. Dan, you're awesome as always. Thank you for all the info.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
Watch it, like and comment for Cari because she's awesome.
Thanks, you guys. See you soon.